And I just want to say welcome to the Recovery Street Film Festival Q&A. My name is Jim Armstrong. In my day job, I work for a drug treatment charity. I'm also a trustee for for ADFAM, great charity that supports people affected by addiction, dependency, substance use, gambling. And we have a fantastic panel for you here today. As I say, the session's been recorded. It will go out on social media, but it's quite an informal discussion. We're going to talk about the film festival. Obviously, this is an event as part of Recovery Month as well. So I hope everyone's enjoying the activities throughout Recovery Month. And I'll get started by telling you a very little bit about the Recovery Street Film Festival. And then we will move on to introducing our panel, who will tell you a little bit about themselves and their experiences of filmmaking and their experiences of stigma. And then we'll have a few questions about for each of our panel members. So please feel free to fire any questions through on the chat or ask them directly yourselves when we get to 1 o'clock, where we do our Q&A. And then about 1:30, we'll do a wrap up. We've got a video with some of our previous participants for the film festival, talk about what the festival means to them. So I've introduced myself. I'll tell you a little bit more about the film festival, a 2-minute introduction really. But about 8 years ago, we started the Recovery Street Film Festival. It brought together a whole range of different charities, volunteers, filmmakers, to share stories using the medium of film, using sort of 3 minutes and then more recently 1-minute films, and pushing those out in whatever medium we can get them out to people with any interest at all, or with lots of experience or very little experience of addiction. Why did we do that? If you think back about sort of 8-9 years ago, we were just about entering a period of what got called the austerity agenda, and we've seen huge cuts to services and support for people. We felt at the time that that is likely to lead to an increase in stigmatization of people who are affected by substance use. And since then, we've been through, over the last 18 months, what we all know we've been through. You don't need me to talk about it really, but we've been through a period of intense change and isolation. And we've seen what we will see, I think, coming from that is an even greater wave of kind of economic pressure, and an even greater need for people to feel that they can reach out and ask for support in whatever form works for them. Whether that's reaching out to a friend to have a conversation, whether it's reaching out to a service, whatever it might be. And we wanted the film festival films to enable people to see that there are other people that have been through something similar to them. That essentially what the festival is saying is you are not alone. And we hope we've done that in some way. You know, the films have been shown to many thousands of people in all sorts of different settings. We started off showing them on high streets, literally setting up screens on the streets of major cities. They've been screened throughout prisons, community services, community cafes, community television, as well as screenings in sort of major cinema screens. They've been seen by everybody from royalty to the rest of us, really, us ordinary people. So the film festival is going to carry on. This year we're doing a bit of a retrospective, looking at where we've come from, where we want to go. And we're really interested in anybody's ideas about what we should do next with the film festival. The film festival is organised by a group of charities, including, and I won't mention everybody here, but Steps to Recovery, Humankind, We Are With You, Change, Grow, Live. Everybody's been involved, from ADFAM, Amy Winehouse Foundation. So I won't mention everybody because I will miss people out, but go to the website, you'll see the names of many organisations that have been involved in lots of different ways over the years, and we're always interested in new organisations that might want to get involved and support the festival. It is a film competition. It's in the form of a competition. What it's really about is sharing stories. And what I'm going to do now is introduce some of our panel members who do that and have done that, and have either judged or submitted films or appeared in films. We've got winners of the festival. We've got an amazing array of experience of people that have actually done that, have actually communicated stories, and put that message out there that you're not alone if you need support. Here's our story. Here's what we did. Here's how it worked. People have been involved in lots of different ways. What I'm going to do is start by introducing, just because she's the next person on my screen as I look at it, I'm going to introduce Maddie Kitchen from Sobriety Films, who has been involved in the film festival and involved in many other film projects, is a filmmaker, and has, I know, lots of other projects bubbling along in the background. So Maddie, would you like to talk to us a little bit about your experience of the Festival of Films and your own projects?
Yeah, sure, Jim. It's lovely to be here today, and happy birthday, Recovery Street Film Festival. It's an incredible event that happens every year that champions recovery, and looking forward to next year. So I found out about Recovery Street Film Festival, I think it was in 2018. And I was working at NHS Specialist Drug Service, and I was facilitating filmmaking workshops with the service users. And I thought, my goodness, what an incredible idea. So I came into recovery in 2006, so 15 years. However, I have relapsed, so I'm actually 10 years sober in November. And yeah, so basically we were making films for the 2018 one. I think it was in Soho, and we all went along, and it was just a fantastic like forum to meet people who had a similar experience and to see the films. I found it really moving. My background is in filmmaking. I have a degree in film. And I suddenly realized as a director, oh my goodness, I found a home here, So so I set up Sobriety Films UK in 2019 as a non-profit CIC. And what we do is we basically champion recovery using film. So that's for people in recovery from addiction, mental ill health, and trauma. So we make films, we run filmmaking workshops, and we do screenings to destigmatize and encourage people basically who would want to go into recovery. Um, yeah, and so I'm trying to think. So my film that went in was in 2018, and it was called Sing. And I'd met a young woman called Katie some years before, and she's an incredibly talented singer-songwriter. And I also knew that she had severe anxiety and depression, and that is my story. So as a filmmaker, I wanted to make Sing about dual diagnosis and about how mental ill health can lead to self-medication. That's what happened to me. I've had depression since I was in my early teens, about 13 onwards, and I self-medicated with alcohol. Anyway, so going back to Katie, we'd spoken about doing a film before, and then I said, let's do it, let's do it for the 2018. And so we shot that quite quickly. I think we shot it in 2 days in about 4 different locations. And really, it is Katie's story of how she manages to get on stage and perform clean and sober with anxiety. I think it was a really important film because it did highlight that addiction is a result of mental illness. And certainly now, with what's happened with the lockdown, a lot of people have suffered, and there's been a big rise in drinking. So, Sing, I think we might be seeing in a minute.
I always sang. I don't remember like a time when I suddenly thought, oh, I can sing. It's been a journey discovering what is what, and there's a lot of crossover between my addiction and mental illness because they drive each other.
Cool.
Thanks, Maddie. And tell us a little bit about what it felt like to see your film and the story within Sing on the screen as part of the festival.
It was incredible. It was so empowering for me, Katie and Cameron, who was the camera person. And, I just, everybody was watching it, and I just thought, oh my goodness, what do they think of this? But it was a real moment where I realised that I'd come this far as a filmmaker, and I was able to watch this on a big cinema screen. It was very exciting. Yeah.
Brilliant. And Sing, it's on. You can find it on YouTube. You'll be able to find it through the festival YouTube. Do watch it. It's a fantastic film. I think we all bring something different to every film that we watch, don't we? Because when I first saw Sing, I thought it really talked to me about the power of music and about finding your own talent, and about overcoming those anxieties to sort of be yourself, really. So it's about dual diagnosis. It's about something different for everybody that watches it, isn't it? And I think it's really important. So watch Sing. You'll find it on YouTube. We'll come back to you with questions, Maddie. I'm sure I've got some to ask you already. But if I could move on to Kerry, is that okay? Who's next on my screen? And Kerry is you double winning festival winner, Kerry?
Yeah.
And has made 2 fantastic films as part of the festival. I know you also do a huge amount of work for NACOA, but please tell us a little bit about yourself, about about your interest in filmmaking, storytelling, and some of the work you do.
Okay, cool. It's a bit of a long story. I owe quite a lot to Recovery Street. So I had my son in 2013, and my mum had been gone for 10 years. I thought I'd grieved through her alcoholism, and then when I had my son, it opened it all back up again, and I was just really confused about how my mum had I felt like she put alcohol before me. So when I saw this come up, I don't know how I saw it, through Facebook on something someone must have shared. I thought, well, my husband's a cameraman. Maybe I'll just sit down and have a chat to the camera. So that's what I did. My husband set the camera, went out of the room, and I talked about my mum. And I called it Understanding Mum. And it was all about me understanding what alcohol had done, and just really going through the process. I found it really cathartic to make it. And then I kind of just forgot about it. And then when I found out I'd won, I just couldn't believe it. And I was at the stage where they asked me to go to the screening. I couldn't even stand up to get a certificate. My anxiety was so bad. And everyone dealt with me really well, and they got me there. And I didn't tell anyone I'd even made it. I didn't show anyone. I couldn't say my mum was an alcoholic. And then I think I judged the following year. And then I got a call after my daughter was born to say, can you come to London for a film screening? And I said, no, I can't come. I've got a new baby now, another one. And they said, come on, you really do want to come. And I didn't know why until I got there, and the Duchess of Cambridge was there. And it was honestly one of the best nights of my life. It was just amazing to sit in there. And I think it was the last 3 years winners. And we met her, and I chatted to her for ages, and she seemed really interested in being the child of an alcoholic and what it was like for me. And just going back one stage, after I'd entered my film, I Googled children of alcoholics, and I came across NACOA online. And I sent the CEO, Hilary, a copy of the film and said, if you'd like to use this, just please do, because I'm not going to do anything with it because I couldn't show it to anyone. And that's when my journey with NACOA began as well. So that was brilliant to find them. And then 2018, I saw the theme was my light bulb moment. And my light bulb moment was finding Nakoa and realising that I was a child of an alcoholic. And so I decided to make a film called Understanding Me. And it was all about me as a mum and how it had felt for me as a child that everything was my fault. But when I found Nakoa, and they've got these 6 C's, and one of them is like, you can't control it, you didn't cause it, all these. And I'd realised that my mum didn't keep me safe. She was an amazing mum, but she also didn't protect me from things. And her drinking had a huge effect on me. Addiction doesn't just affect the person that's drinking. It will affect me forever. I'm probably a different person because of my mum's drinking. But realising it wasn't my fault has meant that now relationships as an adult, even though I'm getting close to 40, I'm still just getting to have boundaries, getting to realise when other people have got issues, I don't have to fix them. You know, there's lots of things attached to that. So that was 2018. Then I judged again in 2019. And then last year in lockdown, I was in the house with my 2 kids going, what can I do to help? There's children they can't go to school. They're stuck in the house. They've got no routine and their parents are drinking. How can I reach them? So I made a stop motion film with my son, a Lego film. And it was all about the schools closing and what impact it would have on children whose parents were drinking. And I wanted to get it out everywhere. So hopefully a child would watch it thinking, oh, that's a Lego film. And then they would see that the support from Nakoa out there, that they've got a helpline and they've got instant chat and messages. And so I entered that and I came 3rd. And my biggest sadness in all of this is Russell Brand would have given me an award. So I'm really sad about that. I would have loved to have met him. So I think that is my whole journey. So although Recovery Street felt like it was about recovery from addiction, for me, it's been recovery from my mum's addiction. And I'm just so grateful to have been involved for so long now. And I think the work you do is just amazing. So the clip that I am showing is one of my clips, which is a bit strange, but I just thought, so it's from Understanding Me, and it's kind of that moment I had when I realised it wasn't my fault.
For every sip that passed her lips to block the blows that were his fist, I felt it then and still do now, the blame it lay with me. Then cold with haste it came the wave, leaving just a mossy grave. So I wait for more with bated breath, for I worried the fault was mine. But then I come to realise, like a switch above those cries, baby girl, you were too young. In this there is no truth.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kerry. And I think people should, if they haven't already, check out your films through the Film Festival YouTube. I think what strikes me, if I can add a little bit, is just the depth and honesty of your films. Really, I think they really do speak to people. I've absolutely no doubt they will have helped many people. And thanks for getting involved. And Junaid, you're up next on my screen.
Hi everyone.
So Junaid, can you tell us a little bit about your involvement with the film festival? And where it's taken you. I know we've been and done some talks to addiction conferences. It's taken you and us and everyone in some interesting directions. But tell us a little bit about yourself.
Definitely. I owe a lot to the Recovery Street Film Festival and other projects Helen's worked on. It's been quite life-changing for me. Like I always thought I'd be on the screen, but the fear was it'd probably be police interceptors. But luckily, the Recovery Film Festival, it was a positive screening of myself. I entered it a few years prior to making my own film. And that's the clip I've shown. I should have shown my one actually. Everyone's picked their own film. That's out now. But yeah, I made a previous attempt first, but I did find Kerry's idea of poetry over the film inspiring and a good way of telling the story. So I used a similar one for the 2019 festival, which one I won. But prior I'd done it slightly different with a bit of rap So that's the one I've shown. But yeah, the impact it's had on me is great. I've got into the professional world of recovery film festival, recovery services. I was trained by Humankind as an alcohol recovery worker. I currently work for Drink Coach. I also worked for Camden and Islington Rough Sleepers Project, WDP. And with all my lived experience and all the knowledge I've gained and stuff, I was even able to get enrolled for a master's in mental health nursing, and that was through all the contacts and stuff I developed through the process of entering the film, and the opportunities that opened up once I did. So yeah, so forever be thankful. Yeah, and yeah, we can show. I picked the film from an old one, but it was quite moving, I thought, as well. It depicts the story of mother and daughter relationship and the impact that has.
I remember that my mom was in distress and sick from stress. She was stuck on drugs. She picked up meth and told me not to worry, with cigarette in her breath. But I couldn't watch her kill herself, so I took my shit and left, and I moved to grandma's crib. Just a kid who didn't want to feel depressed. But mama, I was still a mess, and you were still missed to death. But I couldn't see my mom like that. I hang up, she call right back. Everybody has their ma, and God, I just want mine back. Felt like it was all my fault.
Great, thanks, Junaid. And I mean, brilliant to hear the opportunities that you talked about have opened up relatively recently as well, I think, isn't it, over the last few years? I mean, incredible, incredible. But and I think your clip is really interesting, and you referenced Harry's as well there, really, in terms of the fact that often we think of film, we think about what the visual's going to look like, because it's all about the visuals, isn't it? It's a film. But actually, I think the music, the poetry, the combination of the two is often what gets the message across. And that was a really good example of that, I think. And we've got a few more minutes. So I'm going to introduce you to Chula, who's a judge for the festival, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his experiences.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. It's an honor and a privilege to be here and to have been part of the Recovery Street Film Festival history. And I came into it through Mr. Mark Jones, who's also here, who invited me to be a judge. And I've worked with Maddie as well in Camden, and I also was with WDP for a long time. And I'm an addict in recovery. In my previous life, I was a musician in the 90s, and unfortunately, that lifestyle led me into heroin addiction. But I was fortunate enough to get into recovery in 2003. And that brought me into the addiction treatment field in the statutory sector. I was there for a long time. And in fact, that's where I first met Mark, back in the recovery spaces days at North Westminster Drug and Alcohol Service. And then I went on to manage services and become a psychotherapist. And at the moment, I'm working as a clinical consultant and psychotherapist, working with a number of charities in the music industry, and have my own private practice as well. And I was at Steps to Recovery, managing Steps to Recovery, which is where the film comes from that I picked today, which obviously I have some bias towards, but it means a lot to me. And the main thing for me really is running treatment centers and running clinical environments for people. It can be it can be pretty dark, and working with trauma, working with the consequences of addiction can be a really, really serious environment to be in and go to work in every day, and working with psychotherapy, therapeutic groups, psychotherapeutic education and workshops. What I found and my experience is that it's really, really vital to have a mixture of different elements, and the creative therapies are vital to people sort of bridging that gap from hardcore addiction into recovery. It's not just about the talking therapies. So I've always championed, art therapy, music therapy, drama therapy, and Steps to Recovery. We even had someone coming doing a phototherapy course at a chap called Marcus Boyle. And what I found is that these sort of more creative therapies really lend themselves to the therapeutic process and support the deeper work that's being done in the more, in the groups and in the one-to-one sessions. And Recovery Street Film Festival, when it came to Step to Recovery, just became an extension of that. And it had a really profound effect on the individuals that took part. And I remember being there when it was when this particular film was being made, and I even remember them coming into the office and saying, "How can we get these emojis big enough to be masks? And how can we print them off?" And actually sitting with all of them and doing it on my computer at my desk, and it was just a really touching moment to then see the finished product after watching and witnessing all the work that had gone in. And, it really, on so many levels, it brought the group in the treatment center together at that time. And there were people there with hidden talents, and someone who did all the music for it, who went on to do, a soundtrack film course, and has, gone into that career from bridging that sort of gap, because it had always been a hobby for them in their addiction. But being part of the Recovery Street Film Festival brought that alive for them and brought that into something that could be realistically a career for them, which is just absolutely amazing, And the other talents there, I remember one client from Steps to Recovery, stood up and rapped at the awards, and it was just, there's been so many moments where I've seen clients flourish because of their involvement with it. So as I said, it's a real privilege to be part of it. And I think it's something that we all need to support and get it to grow. And the bigger it gets, the more people will get the message, the more people will get clean, and the more lives we'll save.
Brilliant, thanks, Chula. And have we got a clip for Chula's selection?
My dad once told me, you have two choices in life.
Left or right.
I took the left. That wasn't right. I've lost my kids, I've lost my family, I've lost myself. I can't stand this life. It needs to change. I need to change.
Brilliant. Thanks, Chula. And again, another film you can see on the Recovery Street Film Festival YouTube. There's something particularly sort of heartwarming about that one. If you watch the full film, it is about, for me, it's about this community, really. It's about mutual support, mutual aid. It's about what we all need in life, really, which is the ability to communicate to others, to feel that we can be vulnerable to others and they welcome us. And it's a fantastic kind of short film that shows this brilliant, supportive kind of gang, really, of people that are supporting each other. Based in Liverpool, fantastic film. So we've hit 1 o'clock. We're ready for any questions, and if anybody's got any questions, please do fire them through on the chat or raise your hand and ask away. I've got a few reflections, I guess, that I'd like to put to in the meantime, as people are thinking of questions, put to our panel members. So when we first started the festival, just to put a bit of context, what we thought it was all about communication, really. We thought we were just going to take some messages and put them out into the world that present a more honest, in-depth understanding of people experiencing addiction issues, as opposed to what was seen in the media and what was particularly what has been prevalent and still is prevalent in the media. But I think what we've seen is that the festival's been a lot more than that. We've heard about kind of entrepreneurship, opportunities, cathartic processes, creative, therapeutic processes. So I just wanted to touch on a couple of those. And I've got a question for first one for Maddie, really. Hopefully I'm not putting you too much on the spot, but it always seems to me every time I speak to you, you've got another project on the go. What could make it easier? What would make it easier for you and for people that are creating creative therapeutic projects in film or in other medium, what could make it easier? What help do you need? If people are watching this and say, well, I'd like to support Maddie, what do you need to help you make your projects happen? What would be ideal?
That's a very good question, Jim. Funding. We really need funding. That's the most difficult thing. And I just want to say that we've been awarded funding by Camden Giving to run young people's filmmaking workshops in Camden Borough, which is fantastic, and that's all to do with the work that I did at the NHS Drug Service where I worked with Chula, and also Recovery Street Film Festival. So we are doing a lot of workshops and engaging with young people, which is absolutely amazing. As far as films are concerned, yeah, definitely funding. And I think, it's really important, having seen the films that you've seen, for people to realise that we make films that are very authentic, and you wouldn't necessarily see those types of films without the lived experience. So and also, training filmmakers also who are in recovery, which is something that we really champion doing as well. And just bringing through that talent and recognizing that because you've had addiction or you're recovering from addiction, that it doesn't mean that you can't make a brilliant film. And please give us some money.
So funding.
Yeah, and also I think also that Recovery Street Film Festival is so supported by different addiction charities, isn't it? And they've all come together, which is just an incredible thing. I think that support and that really sort of understanding that we need support as filmmakers to make these films. Sometimes they are quite harrowing to make, and we're dealing with contributors who are talking about their truths, and that is that's the beauty of it. But definitely, we'd like addiction services to get behind us as well.
Brilliant. So recognise that there needs to be support for the filmmakers in order to support people to get involved. I think that's a really important message. I've got a question for Kerry, and you said something that I think was really, really interesting. As I say, when we set the festival up, we thought it was about putting films out there to help change people's minds. But you talked about the process being cathartic. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What do you mean by that?
So I guess it was always in my head, but a bit of a mess. It was kind of scrambled in my head how I felt about my mum. But getting it out, and I think it was 20 minutes long, and getting it down to 3 minutes, kind of going through it all, which was very difficult. Like you say about the filmmaker, you can't underestimate how hard it is to tell you truth. It's exhausting. And some days I could do it for 5 minutes and I'd have to just close the computer. And other days I'd sit there for hours. But it really made me look at myself and my relationship with my mum, and not just the making of it, but the putting it out there, because there was something about accepting myself. I had to do that in putting it out there. And that's really hard to show my friends and my family still alive that actually I still feel like this, that I haven't moved on or got over it, or, those things that people say to you, and the acceptance that I will always be affected by my mum, and being willing to show that to the people that I know. And then actually going to the next stage of, I want this film to help other people, and taking it away from it being about me anymore. And now it's become my purpose. So this tiny little thing that started has grown and grown. And now when I do it, I know it'll exhaust me and it's difficult. But actually, when it reaches other people, that's what it's about. Because like you say, we want to make sure other people know they aren't alone in their experience.
Fantastic. And you touched on a point there about needing to feel that you're right with it, you needing to feel that you understand yourself before you can help others, and that the process seems to help you along that way. Is that right? It seems to sort of give you a bit of sort of structure to kind of put those thoughts in order. Am I sort of interpreting that right?
Yeah, it's really important that it feels okay. So some people might never share their story, and that's fine.
Yeah.
For me, it's felt okay, but I've had to go at the right pace. So I've done it very, very slowly with thank you to you, because you've gone at my pace as well. When I've said I can't stand up, I'm not ready to come to this event, it all has to feel okay. And when it does, I don't know, even after doing it, you know, after watching your film on a screen, you feel betrayal. You can do. I did. I still sometimes feel betrayal from my mum. So it's really important that it feels okay in what I'm saying, and that I've gone on to do other media things, but my mum has to be portrayed in the right way as well, because I really loved her and I still do. So it's just making sure that everything is all right the way I do it, if that makes any sense.
I think it absolutely does, and I think if I'm right, you say, you know, this is real, isn't it? There's depth and nuance and relationships and complexity, and I think that's what we were looking for with the festival, rather than some of the media portrayals can be one-sided, simplistic, can have an agenda. And I think what we're saying is there's no agenda. It's just about sharing your truth, if you're happy to, in the way you want to, in a way that works for you, because that will help others, I think. And Junaid, you got your hand up. Did you have a point to?
You know, I was just going to add about how the whole process is very cathartic, and how it helped me, and just elaborate on that point of acceptance as well for me. This time I've been in recovery since 2015. When I was introduced to the film festival, it was too early for me to make a film about myself. So that film there in 2017, it's about others, other clients that were in the abstinence service with me at the time. And I was too embarrassed at the time to make a film about myself, or, you know, publicly expose myself as, yes, I'm in recovery. For me, the stigma was still kind of strong, but after making that film, and then there was another project Helen was working on, a recovery to journey, or journey recovery, journey to recovery, and in that I wrote some poetry and trying to tell my story, and that helped me when the festival came around the next year. I was like, oh yeah, I could use that poem and make my film, and I did that, and having made the film, the exposure it got, thousands of views, and putting it out there, it's been beneficial for my own journey, my own recovery, and my acceptance, knowing, yeah, that was a part of me, was my past, and I can be proud of where I am now and what I do in regards to other people's recovery as well. It's maintaining my own. So yeah, very cathartic process.
Great, thanks, Junaid. And Maddie, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow on from what Kerry was saying, and also what Junaid was saying. Kerry, I remember when you had that really bad anxiety, and that, you know, that happened to me as well, and that's part of the journey as a filmmaker, and coming out with your story is going through that anxiety, and then suddenly realizing that you really have something to say. I mean, Kerry, your work is incredibly important. You know, you've touched so many people with your work, and, you know, and Junaid, you know, he's a fantastic role model. So I remember the month after being at the Recovery Street Film Festival, I went to America with the film I'd made, How I Got Sober, and it was the Real Recovery Film Festival in LA, and they showed my film. I think Warren's here, actually, bless him, one of the contributors. And I did a Q&A in front of all these people, and there is absolutely no way I would have been able to do that before. I had such terrible anxiety about public speaking. You know, even today, coming on here, I was thinking, oh God, you know, it's difficult, it's very difficult, but I've grown so much as a person through this whole filmmaking journey, and Recovery Street Film Festival has been a really massive part of that.
Thanks, Maddie. Thanks. And just a question for Chula, actually. You talked about the creative therapeutic process and encouraging that through workshops within sort of structured treatment. And I think what we've heard from everybody here is that you know, making a film is not just a technical process, it's an emotional process, and it is about reflection, acceptance, and also thinking about the future a little bit. Are some of those things, do they come out in your work when you work through those therapeutic processes?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I think in a lot of the time, the psychotherapy journey that I support people with on a one-to-one basis is very much about being a witness to their story. And they come into the room and they start telling me who they are, where they've come from, where they've been, and obviously we focus on the trauma that's there in order to do the work. But it is about having one's story witnessed in whatever format that may happen, can be one of the most powerful healing components of someone's recovery. And I remember when I went to rehab and I was told, oh, you got to write your life story and tell it to your group, and I was like, what? And then doing that and feeling that cathartic process of, oh, I've never looked at my life from beginning to present. I've never joined all these dots together, even though I had this awareness or I knew what happened to me. I'd never really put it together. I'd never shared it in the way that I had, and I'd never had it witnessed in the way that I had. And that can be an incredibly beautiful thing. And then to see that solidified in film and to see people expressing themselves through film and having that seen, far and beyond their immediate vicinity and the immediate surroundings and the people that they know, just having that knowledge and of being honored, your pain and your suffering, but also your survival and your triumphs with recovery being honored. It's an amazing thing.
And you make a fantastic point there about the role of the story being witnessed and the role of the audience really as a witness.
Yeah.
And that makes me think that, what we're not doing is just sort of making films and putting them out there. We're actually creating a kind of conversation whereby the audience has a role, and that audience's role, whoever they are, and often we'll never meet all the people of the many thousands of people that have viewed the festival films and each individual story, but those audience members are engaged and involved in witnessing, and by witnessing, paying testament and saying this happened, this is real. So it's a relationship between the audience and the filmmaker.
Yeah.
And I think that the point you make about is really powerful about a story being witnessed. It means it happened, it was real.
Yeah.
And let's use that experience for something. What can we do with that?
And there's reciprocal emotional intimacy, and there's reciprocal love there. I mean, all of us here, put so much love into the work that we do, and the clients and the people that have made these films put their hearts and souls into them, and then the audience receive that, and then giving their love and appreciation back in the way that they connect with it. That's, that I think for many of us, that's what we didn't get enough of when we were children, and we're giving it back to each other as adults, and that's a beautiful thing.
And we hope that has a ripple effect, don't we? I mean, that we will never meet all the people that see the films, but we hope that they, through that experience of witnessing stories, will behave differently, will think differently, or reinforce existing thinking, and have a ripple effect out across, doing our own bit to tackle the bigger issue of kind of stigma, really.
Yeah.
And I suppose we've got another sort of 15 minutes or so. So I just wanted to touch on stigma. This is a kind of an open question, really, to anybody that might want to chip in with a thought. But what else can we do? Do you think? I mean, we're sort of using this creative process, this cathartic creative process, to create a structure of a film which gives insight, which creates engagement, which has a ripple effect. We talked about more of it, but what else can we do you think, to kind of work around this issue of stigma, which is real and hurtful and harmful and outdated and inaccurate? What any thoughts on what else we can do around stigma?
I've got something to say. Just what Chula said earlier, I think Recovery Street Film Festival is so important. I really think it should be invested in and made into a kind of, UK-wide film festival where people can actually, hopefully, go to the cinema and sit there and get that feeling of identification. It's just, yeah, that I think that's really important, that it goes from strength to strength.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, I think that's something we all hope for, really. And you touched on another point there, Maddie, about and Chula also about identification, really, about how individuals can identify within a story, within a theme, within a character, something about themselves which makes that kind of human connection. And I suppose I'll throw this out to the filmmakers, really. Am I right in thinking that before you made your films, there was someone else that inspired you to make the films you made? I'm just thinking, did this kind of ripple effect work for you? Maybe Janae, was there someone that inspired you to get up and actually tell your story?
For me, yeah, there was a lot of artists that are probably not known, but even the rap in my music video was a true story about a son and his mother. The people in the video was a daughter and a mother. I was inspired to see people having the confidence of owning their own stories and being able to publicize it. And that definitely had an impact on me, gave me the confidence to do the same.
Brilliant. So everyone's kind of getting and giving something.
And I even remember Russell Brand, like when he first announced that he was like in recovery, like to me hearing that, it was like, wow, like he's actually talking about it. I thought it's something you'd be ashamed of, you'd hide, but like him having such huge publicity and he openly said it, yeah. And yeah, that for me was like a big thing. I was like, actually, if he can do that, anyone can. It's like, nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah, and you've done that for others, and you are there, Russell Brand. So everyone's getting and giving.
I haven't got the hair for it, but yeah.
Moving the inspiration around, it's fantastic.
It's a real shame, actually, that Janae didn't choose his own film, because it's absolutely incredible. Why did
the last scene of that film, I'm actually holding a Russell Brand book.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a nice message for someone that inspired you and then passing it back on. Question for Kerry, I guess. For what next for you? What you've made a number of films. You talked about your involvement in the NACOA. What other plans have you got? What do you think you're doing next?
Well, I don't know, because when you were saying what inspired me, nothing inspired me. I just saw it, so I entered because it felt like the wrong time. So I think publicising it is really important, and people like celebrities like Russell Brand, just seeing those doing well, and you see someone doing well and you think, oh, they've come from the same place as me. So that, I think the more people we can get involved like that's really good as well. But I just have to wait and see what comes to mind, and I just go with my instinct. I don't ever plan. I've just done, and I was very much inspired by this, I've just done a creative competition with NACOA and a local charity to Brighton, Oasis project called Find Your Oasis, where I asked people to enter with a song, a story or a piece of art. And I held an exhibition in Brighton and we got 50 entries, and I was inspired by my feeling of entering this and how it gave me a voice. And I just think giving people a voice or an outlet, so even if they don't want to talk about their own experience, like you said, a creative outlet is so important as a child of an alcoholic, and probably with addiction as well, I don't know. So when you're young, being able to get lost in a piece of art or writing, or it's really important. So anything I can do to get to children of alcoholics like that, I did a poster competition with Callum Best and Elle McPherson as well, and a street artist, where I just put posters up all over Bristol with NACOA, just saying some mums and dads drink too much. I'm always thinking about the little me and what I would have needed when I was young. I'm also finalising a lesson plan in all secondary schools in Brighton and years 5 and 6 of primary school, about children of alcoholics. I will just reach them in any way possible. So who knows what I'll be doing next, but maybe I'll enter again.
Fantastic. Yeah, and it's great. It's great to hear that, because I think we're talking about film, and as I mentioned before, it's not just about film. It's music. It's production. It's about choosing the right voiceover, the right poetry, the right message. So it's not just about visuals, but it's really important, I think, that we do think about all means necessary to communicate. If we've got some inspiration to pass on, people will want to receive that in a way that works for them and that captures their attention. And we should be thinking by all means necessary, what can we use, what medium can we use, whether it's theatre, art. You talked about the visual billboards and creative visuals. You talked about using and being inspired by people who are well known. I think that kind of thought process is really important, that there's really nothing that we can't turn to a positive cause, really. So yeah, we've got a few more minutes, and have we got any more questions for any of our fantastic panel? I've got a hand up from Mark, one of our organisers of the festival, Steps to Recovery. Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Jim, and thanks to everybody for coming along today. I just had a question. It's more about the process of the festival than anything else. I had a question for the panel. Part of my responsibility as one of the organisers is dealing with the judging and the judges and getting the scores back for the films. And one of the things that really kind of eats away at me a little bit is that the margins between the scores are very, very small. So you've got 10 shortlisted films. Basically, you get tens of films that are entered. The 10 shortlisted films are arrived at without very much debate at all. But as far as the judging is concerned, those margins between first and fifth or first and sixth aren't really very big. And I was just wondering what the panel thought about. I know festivals generally take the form of competitions at which there's a winner, a second, a third, and that sort of adds a level of excitement that people enjoy and people feel very connected to. But I was just wondering what the panel felt about the nature of competition within this context, if anybody had any thoughts about that.
I mean,
sorry.
But you can go first.
No, you go, it's fine.
Now, I was just going to say the 10 shortlisted, I've always viewed like all 10 as winners. And like there's a much difference, like you said, in grades, how they scored between that first or third or fifth. And yeah, and it's a process of it, because all 10 get shown at the cinema, all 10 are there, everyone, all the creators get together. It's a great event. Of course, it's nice to be first and not third. That's just a little boost of personal egos. But I mean, the whole process is loved and enjoyed thoroughly. Like even in 2017, we didn't, that film, the clip I showed, didn't win. But we went through the whole event, went to the cinema, shown on the big screen, got to see it, and all our friends, family, everyone we watched it, so it was great. But it does make a difference, though, because in 2019 I won it, and I was extra excited, and I promoted that film in many other ways as possible as well. But yeah, I mean, personally, it would make a difference, but generally, they're close. You can see different levels of effort, and sometimes you think this should have won, but it didn't, and another one won. Even when I won mine, I thought maybe not win, because I thought I liked a different one more. So it depends on personal choices.
Yeah, I've got a point to make there. I think it's important that the film wins that kind of goes with the zeitgeist, something that needs addressing that's not being addressed in the public domain. Does that make sense? So like I just did some judging for Afrin Short Film Festival, and I think you would pick a film that has real resonance for the time, what's happening at the time, and that makes it even more powerful. So for instance, Junaid's film had really high production values, and then there was another film, I think it came second, which was sorry, I'm going to say it was poor production values, but it wasn't. But it was incredibly, it was just, it got me. It was fantastic. But I think it's really important that a winner has a sort of like a cultural and news angle. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And Kerry, did you want to add?
Yeah, so I've got a few different angles of this. So winning the film festival was massive for me. It validated everything I've been through for the first time in my life. So I thought coming first was huge. Now, when I helped with the judging of the competition I've just run, the judges all hated judging, and they said it felt unfair because it was all really difficult and they were all going to affect someone differently. So someone who looked at it, who'd had an experience similar, would be more affected. And they said they didn't like judging and they wished that they could just all be shown. And then a few of the entrants said, I always felt I wasn't good enough, and not coming in the top 3 has made me feel a bit not good enough. So I think there's different aspects to judging, but also with NACOA, when they do their volunteer awards, instead of having first, second and third, they have different categories. So best volunteer, or they have lots of different names of awards. So nobody feels like they're more special, but they all feel like important and valid. So yeah, I've just got lots of different views on judging really, and I haven't worked out what I think of it yet because I'm going to run my competition again and I don't know how I'd do it, but I just thought I'd feedback what I'd heard from judges.
That's a really great idea.
Kerry,
yeah. But even the shortlisted 10 can be like based on their strengths awarded. Like, if it's for production, if it's for the camera work, for the poetry, if it's for the animations or different aspects of creativity. So you can have different reasons each one is a winner and have them all as like the 10 winners sort of thing.
Yeah. So you could judge it in the same way, but then the people at the top could then decide what it was winning for, because you'd be able to look at it and work out what it was winning for. But yeah, just ideas.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And I think that's always the issue with sort of creative projects, isn't it? That we're not saying an individual sort of that cathartic process they've been through is sort of better than someone else's cathartic process. But I suppose it puts a structure, and there are pros and cons. I think one point, I suppose, for me is I think it's really interesting to look back across the films over the last sort of 6-7 years, because I think differently about some of them than I did when I saw them 5, 6, 7 years ago, because I'm a different person than I was 5, 6, 7 years ago. So it's always about this kind of point in time, what seems to capture, but that doesn't mean that it's gone at that point. I think it's really important to keep looking back at those films, and I'd encourage anybody, if they've seen the films and they remember them from 5 years ago, watch them again now and see if you see something different, because you're different. And I certainly saw something different in one of Kerry's films, the second one I think it was, when I'd recently become a father, and there was a line in there about what will I be as a parent, what have I taken from my parents, and what will I pass on, and that, I think that skipped me by 5 years ago, but it stuck with me now. So I think it's really important to look back. And that's part of what we're doing this year as a retrospective. Let's look back through those films and see what we can see that we didn't see at the time, because perhaps we're now in a different place. And so these films are always there and always have something to offer. We have a winner, and I think it's great that we have winners. But I think it's also important to remember that there's truths in these films that we can learn from. Now and in 5 and in 10 and in however many years times.
And I think a few years ago, there was probably like a decent price for the first, and compared to not being first. But now that's kind of not there. So maybe like, and if all 10 were called winners for different categories, then you've got 10 people with a positive outcome. They can say, I'm a winner of the film festival. And you can just spread that message a lot more. Because like Kerry said, some people can be really disappointed and disheartened by not being the winner. And it can be, you put so much effort and energy. It could be your first project you're doing after coming into recovery, and then not making it might not have a positive impact.
I think it's a really good point. And the festival is constantly changing. So do share those ideas. Anybody watching this, when we put it out through social media, do share those ideas, and we will constantly kind of trying to create a format which creates the best result, really. So it's not a festival for the sake of it, but it's about trying to do something. And we're constantly, we get together as an organising group and chuck around all sorts of different ideas about how we could make this work in different ways. Of course, last year we went online, we changed from 3-minute films to 1-minute films, and we will keep evolving it. So I think that's really important, that it's not here for the sake of it. It's here to create an outcome, and we need to keep adapting and changing.
Jim, could I make a point about the future of Recovery Street Film
Yes.
Festival?
Yeah.
Okay, so for instance, if you look at the Mind Media Awards, as a lived experience filmmaker, it used to make me really angry going there, and it's all broadcast films made by people who don't necessarily have lived experience, and this is the strength of Recovery Street Film Festival. I would like to see this festival up there, where Mind Media Awards is. It's completely unique. And like I speak to a lot of people around the country, and some of them don't know about Recovery Street Film Festival, and I don't know how they miss out, but I keep on telling people. So I would love for it to be bigger, and more reach for stigma busting and encouraging people to get into recovery.
Brilliant. Well, that seems like the absolute summation of what we're here for. I think you've absolutely nailed it, Maddie. So better known, more widespread, and helping more people. That's what we want to do. So thanks for. Well, I'm going to take those as essentially our final comments on this section. And I think we've got a short film to show from some of our previous participants about what the festival meant to them.
Hello, my name is Matthew Butler and I am the volunteer lead for Change Grow Live's Renew service in Hull. And I'm also the winner of last year's Recovery Street Film Festival. To be honest, the Recovery Street Film Festival means so much to me. I'm very passionate about sharing real life stories about the lives that our service users live. I do think the media still portrays drug use and alcohol dependency in a very stigmatized sort of way, which isn't true to real life. And I do think the Recovery Street Film Festival is extremely important because it's a chance for our service users who are actually living that lifestyle to share what it's really like and to see it through their eyes rather than the eyes of the way the media portrays it. And I think it's something that we need to keep doing to reduce the stigma throughout the country and throughout the world as well.
Hope Inside was filmed in the therapeutic community at HMP Wymore. The film gave voice and opportunity to showcase recovery and rehabilitation from behind the bars. But what did all this mean behind the scenes? It meant lives were changing for the better. Fathers were going home to their children, sons to their mothers, families being reunited. Relationships improved, both inside and outside. Less violence, less crime, less victims, less substance abuse. More optimism, self-worth. improved physical and mental health, a journey of self-discovery, and the knowledge that recovery is not where you are, it's the disposition you're at. Hope inside, given for the benefit of all.
Being involved with the Recovery Street Film Festival was a fantastic experience. Working with the residents of Steps to Recovery, planning and discussing the ideas for the film, and then filming it with the residents, particularly Billy. It was just a great experience, and we produced something that I think we were all really proud of. In a short space of time, and which I hope said something about the experience of kind of getting clean and moving from the sort of the darkness of the streets into the kind of light of recovery.
Fantastic. So probably echoed some of the points we talked about today. Well, that brings us to a close, really. And if anyone's got any sort of final comments they'd like to make, all I'll do is and if you do, please do shout out. But if not, then I'll just thank our fantastic panel, Chula, Kerry, Sinead, and Maddie. Thanks for coming along. And thanks for your past involvement and continued involvement in the festival. Thanks to our organising charities, who I won't try and mention again because I'm sure I'll forget some, but they include organisations like Steps to Recovery, Phoenix Futures, Humankind, Change, Grow, Live, AdFam. All sorts of organisations have been involved over the years. I will have forgotten some, but thank you to all of those charities for being part of organising the festival. I feel personally really encouraged by today that we've got some great ideas of how we go forward. This year is a sort of retrospective, would encourage everybody to look back on those previous films. And I know as an organising group, we'll be getting together and thinking about how we do achieve those aims that Maddie mentioned about getting the festival bigger, the reach wider, about helping more people. As I say, we started the festival with quite a simple idea. I think actually the impact has been much greater, and that's really quite fantastic to see. Thanks for everybody that's come today, and anybody that's watching the recording. Please do watch the film festival films, get in touch if you've got ideas about supporting or encouraging or how we can do things different or better. As I say, we're always adapting and changing. And yeah, thank you for everybody. Thanks to Helen, Harry, Sean, everybody that's organised today, and all of our amazing volunteers that have helped us over the years, of which there have been many, and all our many thousands of viewers who, as I say, weren't just passive viewers. They were taking part in a process, witnessing stories, giving meaning and learning and passing on to others what they'd learned. So thanks to everybody that's done that. And I think that's us for today. Thanks for coming along. And we'll do the Zoom wave or thumbs up and just say everybody stay safe, have a great day, and take care of yourselves.